Good day, Mr. Trevor.
All right, thank you for having me.
It's truly an honor, and I want to thank you very much for accepting to have the time to meet with me today. And especially, as I mentioned before, that we are in a very special moment right now in February, where Canada is celebrating 30 years of him designated February as the Black History Month. And for me, as a young leader, I would say it's a very important and significant time for this moment because I really value intergenerational dialogue. And I think that you, as also a leader in your community, a leader in the environment you're actually fulfilling your duty, it's very important for us to look upon you and to know exactly the progress we have done, the progress we have made, the achievement that has been done throughout the history itself. So it's going to be a very important and an honor for me to be here and to talk with you about different aspects into our community, into unity as well, but foremost also about leadership, the evolution of leadership in our society as well. So thank you very much. And before we start, I would like to ask you a quick question because people will be probably seeing you, they might not know you exactly, but who is Mr. Trevor? If you have to talk a little bit about yourself.
I would say I'm a passionate person about people. So in all of my career, I've always been passionate about young people. Even when I was young, I started as a youth counselor. Um, I was just wanting to empower people, like how I was empowered. So I just always wanted to give that back, and I carried that same thing through my whole career and into management, and into all of the different roles that I've had. But it was always around that theme of empowering others so that they can see the strength in themselves and fulfill that, and because that was my experience. So as I am now as a president and CEO, I try to impart that down to all of our staff. In how do we treat our staff, and how do we treat the people that walk through our doors, right? We have to believe that first before we can influence anyone else outside of ourselves, right? So that's just who I am, and I've always been that way.
Impressive. That's very impressive to see that it started from somewhere and keep going, and actually impacting the overall space. So my question to you regarding this very special and important moment of Black people in Canada. I know we just had a very good and informative session out there about the history, but I want to know what is your perspective in terms of Black History Month. You've been in Canada for a long time, and you are the one that actually can tell us, young generation, the progress. You can tell us the evolution. You can tell us how things was done before and how it's different today. So my question to you will be, what is the vision that you have today for the Black History Month since you have been here in Canada, the progress you saw, the evolution of society? What is the aspect on how you view this celebration?
Well, I've grown up. I was born in Canada, so I grew up here, and I've seen over the decades. I've always seen a focus on Black culture in terms of music, in terms of the arts, um, in terms of our artistic talents and legacy. That's what I've seen, which is great, which is fantastic. But I've always felt we are more than that. And growing up, I did not see those other parts: the Black scientists, the Black teachers, the Black leaders, the mathematicians. We our skill, our expertise is in the arts, but it's also in a lot of other areas. But those other areas were not as visible. And so it was one of the things that I started to look for on my own. And it is one of the things that for me, as growing up over the years and decades, I needed that in terms of charting a path forward for my success. Um, of course, the blackness in sports and music and the arts was a motivator for me. I started out as an athlete, and really succeeded that way. But I knew that that was not going to give me a long-term career and success. So I needed to find something else, and that's when I really needed to look for black success in other areas, and it really helped me.
Important. I have this question here. From your perspective, which important historical narrative or community stories are still too often absent from public conversation today?
Hmm. that's a good one. Well, I think that there is a long, powerful history of Black people in Canada that most people don't know, and that history is really not told or taught. Um, you know, most people don't know that the famous Black leaders in our world, like Harriet Tubman,
Mm,
actually came to Canada and lived in Canada,
mm,
in St. Catharines. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that more than 30,000 people left slavery in the U.S. and came to Canada for
yeah,
freedom.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
A lot of people don't know that. That's not told or taught.
Mhm.
In all of the Black history that I've learned growing up, I didn't hear that. We have historic places in Canada that Black people lived hundreds of years ago. So on the one hand, we have a strong history in terms of culture that's told over and over and over again in terms of um, our expertise in sports and music, dance, which is fantastic. We should be proud, but it doesn't end there. We have an experience in Canada. There's a struggle that has given us strength that needs to be told. And I think that now we're starting to see more of that being highlighted and acknowledged, which I think is important.
In that part, so how us as young generation can reinforce that missing part? How do you see our impact into bringing that part of the history that's been probably avoided? How can we contribute in reinforcing that part?
I think young people need to seek it out. That um, needs to start from inside. I remember when I was young, if you're told stuff and you're told to do something, you're more apt to not want to listen.
Yeah.
But if you see that desire has to start from within. So I think young people need to seek out more information, and you can find that in elders and leaders, other Black successful people, or you can go out and seek that information out on your own. Um, we should never put limits on ourselves, right? So, um, you know, we need to ask questions and seek out information. And if you're not getting it, seek it out somewhere else, right? It's very important because in the end, whether you have mentors or guidance and support from other people, at some point, all of us will be left alone to make our own decision and chart our own path. So you have to have that built up inside to push you forward. So now in the days of internet, the information is all around us. There's no real excuse not to be seeking out to learn more about who you are. I think the thing for me in terms of Black people and Black youth, all cultures in our world come from roots, from history, information, experience, and struggle. All cultures start there, and the generations are born and grow from that. But if you don't know any of the history, you cannot gain any of that power, right? So, and it's part of the reason why a lot of Black people are there's a sense of isolation because we don't have the wraparound support, and then we actually don't have the history as well, right? So it there has to be a seeking of information from a youth or an individual to start.
That's very important. But I know earlier you just mentioned to me when we were just talking, you said that you felt there is a disconnection between the oldest generation and the youngest generation. And that's still resonating in my mind. And I really want to know, how do you think that disconnection happened and why is still continuing today? Because now you just said that we need to seek information, but to who we need to go seek those information?
Right. Well, I think there. Well, when I was young, um, I didn't have access to any older, successful Black people. I had my father and I had my brother, and so I kind of followed their example. But as I started to grow and get into my profession and become more successful into levels of executive and meeting the other leaders and successful Black people, I realized that a lot of them aren't connected. They're not looking back and giving that hand to help someone else up. And I think the reasons is because number one, it's very hard to get to the top as a person of color. It's not easy. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and you're jumping hurdles constantly.
Yeah.
So once someone gets there, they don't have a lot of energy left. And I think that the interest and energy to now go back and help others up, I think most of people, their energy is put forth to doing that executive job, keeping it and trying to move on and having their piece of the pie and enjoying it. But I realize that we have to have more responsibility than that. And it's our duty to put that hand back down and show people the path we just created.
Yeah. That's very powerful. Someone told me when we were born without clothes. So we have inherited everything on earth. But there will be a moment where we need to restore everything that we have learned. And I think that's also very important for people. But I want to ask another question. Among the many contributions of Black heritage, is there one aspect that resonates with you personally, or that you believe continue to shape our society today? The heritage that we have inherited from the one that went before us.
In terms of Black people, in general?
Yeah, in general, yeah.
I think that Black people we are creators of culture, creators of trends. We lead movements. You can see this every day in terms of music, art, sports. We are leaders, and it doesn't matter what we enter into, we end up leading it and being the best at it. You can see that now in terms of science, astronauts, mathematicians, you name it. And I think that it's up to us to start promoting that more, highlighting that more, because it's not up to other people or cultures to highlight that for us. We have a very strong sense of being, but we need to promote it for ourselves and for our families and for our young people, so that young people can see that we have success in all areas, but a lot of it is not highlighted, right? So That's one thing that I've noticed over the decades, and I think that it our success is there. It just needs to be brought more out so that young people who want to get into engineering, or if they want to be an athlete, or if they want to be a teacher, or a lawyer, or a judge, they know it's a possible, and they can see paths to that because it exists. We have those successes, and it's really good to see.
But do you have one that actually shaped you personally? You learned from something?
Well, I think for me personally, I do. It's my brother. My brother's success shaped me personally. Um, because he was a president, CEO in the USA, and he grew up in Canada and was able to succeed. So I followed that path. I saw a path. I knew it was possible, and I followed it. Right. And the other great example I would say is obviously President Obama.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That probably one of the most difficult paths
Yeah.
to achieve
Yeah.
that ever existed.
Yeah.
But he did it by influencing and engaging people,
Yeah.
groups of people. And then he was able to communicate that influence out. And when you do that, you can move the masses, right? And I always try to do that in my career, especially when I became management over people. You want to be able to influence them in a positive way, but there's only certain ways you can do that. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to engage. You have to be able to empower people, and so those are the examples that I follow.
Wow, impressive. I'm also very inspired by President Obama with what he had accomplished. I know it's one of the greatest accomplishments among history, but that's really fascinated our view in terms of the limits that was imposed on us on how we can actually go above or beyond those limits. My other question is going to be personally on your experience, your journey. Is there an important challenge that you had faced in your leadership journey? And how did you overcome this challenge? And how did this challenge help you to shape your resilience into your vision as a leader?
Hmm. That's a good one. Well, yes, I mean, I've had many challenges. I think in general, the biggest one was defeat, right? So whether it's I've had a lot of success in terms of my career, but I've also had a lot of no's and defeat. So there's a lot of positions I didn't get, right? And every single time I was going in an interview or for a position, an executive position, and I didn't get it, I turned that into energy of excitement.
Okay.
Because I knew that if it wasn't that door, it's going to be the next door.
Okay.
For me, that is one of the most important factors for success. It's your mentality, right? It was the same thing as when I had my track and field career. There were many races that I didn't win, but I always knew, okay, it's going to be the next one. And that mentality just kept me moving forward, because you cannot avoid defeat and disappointment. It's just part of the process. So the only way that I got through all of those hurdles and barriers was my mentality. Right. So that's kind of how I made it through and navigated. I just didn't accept the barrier, and I just wanted to achieve constantly.
Wow.
So, um, you know, early on, I'll never forget this one example. Early on, I was a counselor, and then I thought I could do more. So I think I went to my manager and just had a talk and said, you know what, you think there's an opportunity for me to, maybe become a manager or something like that? And they had said, no, I think I think you're doing really well what you're doing right now. Keep doing that. You're doing good.
Okay.
And that's not something you should ever tell somebody,
Yeah.
because no one should ever limit your growth. So for me, just my mentality, although that was a fantastic job and they were great people, I knew I can do more. And so I didn't let that comment stick.
Okay.
And then within, I think 6 or 8 months, I was a manager somewhere else.
Wow.
So for me, it's about the mentality that got me through.
I know I just mentioned about challenges, but what is your biggest accomplishment that you are the most proud of today?
Well, I mean, besides the birth of my daughter and my wife, my daughter is the most proud. Okay. But I would say in terms of my career, I'm very proud of my. You know what? There's so many. I my advancement in my career, I'm very happy about. My track career is some great experiences. Um, I getting to the level of president and CEO is a very great experience and accomplishment. Just because it wasn't a clear path for me. When I did my 2 master's degrees, especially the MBA, that's one of my greatest, proudest accomplishments because it wasn't easy, and there wasn't anybody who looked like me in that degree, in that program. And I think there was one other black guy there.
Wow.
And most of my career and experiences, there's not a lot of people that look like me. So, on the one hand, it's a nice, proud moment that I've reached certain levels. In the other hand, it's a disappointed moment because there should be more.
Yeah.
I should not be the only one, right? So, it's a good end.
Wow. Interesting. I really want to ask more questions because I really like when I'm actually in front of leaders and I always want to ask questions, but I know we're also going. This is the only thing that we can accept as a limit is the time. So, but my last question for you will be if you could offer one key piece of advice to young leaders striving to preserve and make an impact, what would it be?
What
Can tell them.
one piece of advice I would say is strengthen your mind, fine tune your mentality. That is the most powerful thing that's going to take you through to whatever dream you want to accomplish, because it's the one thing that is flexible enough to handle the dips and valleys, the barriers and the falls, and it'll push us to get back up and to keep moving forward. If you don't have a strong mind and mentality, any barrier or hurdle will stop you. And it could stop you for months, it could stop you for years, because then that energy converts into, defeat, stress, depression, and it just holds you down. Our mind has to be strong. If you want to try something or achieve something, go for it 110%. Regardless if you fail or not, that's irrelevant. The point is you must strive for it. And it's the process of striving that's the success, not whether you hit that mark or not, because you're going to eventually hit it. But if you don't keep striving, you'll never reach that. So that would be my piece of advice.
I think I had the honor and the chance to actually listen him directly on this side, and very impressed with everything you've said. It's a very knowledge moment, especially for myself, and I've learned a lot. I really got the privilege of speaking with you earlier and knowing a lot of many aspects that actually impacting our community. I would like to ask more and go deeper in that, but I can really appreciate the time that you gave us today, and I want to thank you especially for that as well, which was a very honor and privilege for me to sit with you today. And I want to thank you again for that. And I think that's it for
Well,
today.
thank you. Thank you for having me. This was fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. Trevor. Thank you very
All right.
much.